Okay, we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, entitled Creation of the Universal Form. It's December 9th, 2023. Narayanam namaskritya naram chavanotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, or to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and then to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nicham Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yutamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we're studying text 11 of Canto 3, Chapter 6, Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 11. Ata Tasya Bitaptasya Katida Ayatanani Ha Nirabidyanta Devanam Tani Megadata Shrinu Atatasya Bitaptasya Katidaya Tananiha Nirabidyanta Devanam Tani Megadata Shrinu Atatasya Bitaptasya Katidaya Tanani Ha Nirabidyanta Devanam Tani Me Gadata Shrinu Atatasya Bitaptasya Katidaya Tanani Ha Nirabidyanta Devanam Tani Me Gadata Shrinu Atatasya Bitaptasya Katidaya Tananiha Devanam Tani Me Gadata Shrinu Atatasya Bitaptasya Katidaya Tananiha Nirabidyanta Devanam Tani Me Gadata Shrinu. Would someone online like to recite the verse?
Atatasya Bitaptasya Katidaya Tananiha Nirabidyanta Devanam Tani Megadata Shrinu.
Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 11, Word meanings. Ata, therefore. Tasya, his. Abhitaptasya, in terms of his contemplation. Katida, how many. Ayatanani, embodiments. Ha, there were. Nirabidyanta, by separated parts. Devanam of the demigods. Tani, all those. Megadata, described by me. Shrinu, just here. Translation. Maitreya said, you may now hear from me how the Supreme Lord separated himself into the diverse forms of the demigods after the manifestation of the gigantic universal form. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The demigods are separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, as are all other living entities. The only difference between the demigods and the ordinary living entities is that when the living entities are rich in pious acts of devotional service to the Lord, and when their desire to lord it over material energy has vanished, they are promoted to the post of demigods, who are entrusted by the Lord with executing the management of the universal affairs. Okay, so I'm going to read a few more verses, and then we'll speak something and have discussion. Text 12. Tasyagnir asyam nirbinam lokapalo vishatpadam vacha suvam shena bhaktavyam yayasau pratipadyate. Agni, or heat, separated from his mouth, and all the directors of material affairs entered into it in their respective positions. By that energy, the living entity expresses himself in words. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The mouth of the gigantic form of the Lord is the source of the speaking power. The director of the fire element is the controlling deity or the Adideva. The speeches delivered are adhyatma, or bodily functions, and the subject matter of the speeches is material productions, or the Adibhuta principle. Text 13. Nirbinam talu varuno lokapalo vishadare jivayam shena charasam yayasau pratipadyate. When the palette of the gigantic form was separately manifested, Varuna, the director of air in the planetary systems, entered therein, and thus the living entity has the facility to taste everything with his tongue. Text 14. Nirbine ashvino nase vishnur avishatam padam Granenam shena gandhasya patipatir yato bhavet. When the Lord's two nostrils separately manifested themselves, the dual Ashvini Kumaras entered them in their proper positions. And because of this, the living entities can smell the aromas of everything. Text 15. Nirbine akshini tvashta lokapalo vishad vibo. Chakshusham shena rupanam pratipatir yato bhavet. Thereafter, the two eyes of the gigantic form of the Lord were separately manifested. The sun, the director of light, entered them with the partial representation of eyesight, and thus the living entities can have vision of forms. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Om Anganatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Anmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapradakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpate Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. All right, so we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, text 11 through 16. Okay. Yes. So there's many points here, many interesting points here. There's a few places here where someone who's kind of familiar with Prabhupada's teachings of books, some of what's written in these few verses can seem contrary to what Prabhupada usually says. Okay, so let's deconstruct it and go into it and see what we find. All right. So one thing here in the purport to text 11 of chapter 6, canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes, the only difference between the demigods and the ordinary living entities is that when the living entities are rich in pious acts of devotional service to the Lord, and when their desire to lord it over material energy is vanished, they are promoted to the post of demigods who are entrusted by the Lord with executing the management of universal affairs. So usually, most of the time, or often, we hear the demigods are not pure. Here, kind of interested. It's because Prabhupada says, yes, one becomes a demigod when one's desire to lord it over material energy has vanished. Okay, so Prabhupada's emphasizing a particular principle, and that, as we accumulate pious acts, or like that, as we get more and more pure, then our desire in a vikarma way. Vikarma means like vicious karma, producing karma that really causes harm and damage. It's like if we act according to basic shastric principles, it's still karmic. But it's karma in a way that gradually elevates us. So Krishna describes in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's vikarma, vicious karma, karma, which is like karma, but it's okay, we're coming up in the modes. And then there's akarma, that's bhakti. That's action, words, thought, that doesn't produce any more karma. We're not continuing the cycle of karmic birth, death, old age, disease, and perpetrator and victim and all of that. Okay. So just like we can, let's say, a metaphor of a company, right? The universal management. It's like a big organization, a big company. And so, all right, so like if someone has proved themselves, like, oh no, I'm ready to handle a lot of responsibility, then they might get it. Maybe they'll become the vice president or the CEO. And you get to manage hundreds of millions of dollars. Or let's say the mail clerk handles a few pieces of mail like that, and they're like, oh yeah, no, you've proven yourself that you're not going to misuse this. You're not going to misuse this you're not going to misuse the money or the resources just for your own personal selfish satisfaction. You're not going to commit malfeasance and like that. You're not going to do thievery. No, you're going to use it responsibly for the good of the company, and you'll get a salary in reciprocation. So as one proves themselves, then there's more and more responsibility. So in the universal system of management, and Prabhupada's making the point, like, just like me, Maybe, very, very possibly, some or all of us, maybe in previous to this current body, we were in demigods' bodies, maybe previous lifetime, maybe trillions of lifetimes ago, and maybe in previous bodies, we were in the bodies of worms and stool, or dogs, or cats, or blades of grass in different planetary systems, 8,400,000 species, and the demigods. So the demigods are jiva souls. I mean, there gets to be exceptions, but that's not focused on here. And that the demigods, they're jiva souls who tend not to be pure devotees, but very, very pious, very responsible, competent, sincere servants of the king, of the supreme government. And so they get the demigod positions. And so much of the Vedas are about, we can go to the heavenly planets if we live this life in a good way and get demigod position. So much of religion is about that, like be good and go to heaven. Demigods, they're denizens of the heavenly regions, because like that. And and so, well, first of all, from a rational point of view, because this whole idea of demigods, you can say, oh yeah, like Greek mythology, Roman mythology. Okay, yes, this is the Indian mythology. But, and these are examples we use many times, or rational arguments, right? So just like here in these verses, it talks about, okay, it talks about uh, air and water and fire and the different ether, the different elements, and earth. Okay, so we can say, so some say, oh, that's so primitive. I thought you're an educated person. How can you believe like a demigod of the air, a demigod of the sun? Huh. I thought you were an educated, sophisticated type of person. But let's look at it logically. All right, so say like light. All right, so if we look at this light bulb of 100 watts, 75 watts. So how is that happening? Oh, it just happens. It just random chance. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, as a shocked. I have a PhD and everything. As is completely shocked that I believe in demigods. Oh my God, how embarrassing. Okay, so let's see where we go with this. So all right, so no, the light bulb just came together, the tungsten, the filament, and like that. Like, no, there'll be, so an educated person saying, no, the light bulb didn't just come together. No, there's an engineer and a scientist who knows about the chemistry, and there's Gainesville Regional Utilities, and there's like a manager and a CEO. There's a whole lot of organization behind 75 watts. So it's logical to conclude that there's a bigger brain behind 75 quadrillion times quadrillions of watts in the sun. That's logical. That's logical. And yes, yeah, so why not demigod of air like that? And then someone could say, well, okay, but if I wanted to meet the chief engineer or CEO of the electric company, I could do it. I don't have to, it doesn't like blindly believe that right? But even for that, there's a process, right? It's not just like, okay, if the CEO of the electric station, the electric company, the chief engineer, if he really exists, let him appear before me right now. Come on. Let him appear. Where is he? So it's all mythology. No, that's not the way it works, David. There's a process. You can meet him. You can meet him. There's a process. You need to have a reason. You write an email. You make a phone call. Probably they have an assistant or a secretary. You make an appointment. Okay, then you can meet the demigod of the light bulb. So similarly, all the demigods, there's processes to encounter them, just like there's processes. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yajantya Vidi Purvakam, that those who serve and worship demigods always for some material gain, they're doing it without correct understanding, because the demigods, they're the administrators, and they're serving, ultimately they're serving Krishna. Whether it's Kali or Shiva or the demigods of the air, they're all serving Krishna. I mean, I'm skipping a few steps there, but ultimately, so there's a way to there's a process. Okay, there's a process, and the process to know Krishna is bhakti yoga. And there's other processes to get to know the demigods, if that's one's goal. And it's not encouraged to make that the goal. One who knows Krishna, then naturally, then we're in the same consciousness of the demigods. Let's serve the king. Let's serve Krishna. Then there are friends. Then Mother Earth becomes our friends. That's why the devotee is the greatest ecologist and environmentalist. Because we can, there's different things, Mother Earth, this and that. We can speculate, how to clean up the earth and this and that. Of course, we ought to treat Mother Earth a lot better than we do as a species, for sure. And at the same time, if we're just just basic science, right? Like if these days, in recent decades, if we're just like, let's say if even like a critical mass, what to speak of if all humans were vegetarian, how good that would be for the ecology. Like we wouldn't even need to think about ecology or environmentalism, right? Just by, not that the slaughterhouse industry is the only cause of polluting Earth, but it's a major thing. Everyone knows that now. It's basic science. So kind of like as a devotee, we don't even think about not killing the animals. Naturally, we're not going to kill the cows, right? We're not going to kill the animals. We're just going to eat prasadam. We don't even, in a sense, we don't need to separately think of ecology and environmentalism. Being a devotee, Mother Earth is happy and she supplies abundantly because she's smiling and happy. Okay. She's the demigoddess of the earth. Yes. So okay. So then so it talks here in verse 12. So Prabhupada talks about Adideva, Adhyatma, and Adibhuta. So these are concepts, principles we hear a lot about in Prabhupada's writings, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's lectures, okay. And it can get complex, okay, but okay. Just some understanding that I think I have, which isn't much, but. So Bhagavatam, right in the second verse, Vyasadeva says, Dharma pojita purtvatra paramoniam atsaranam satam vejam astra atravastu shivdam tapo trion mulatam, completely rejecting all so-called religious activities that are materially motivated. This Bhagavatam propounds the highest truth, which is not material worship of the demigod. The highest truth is understood by those devotees who are free from jealousy and envy, completely pure in heart. Just like Krishna says in the beginning of the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Itam tu te gyatamam pavaksham yana suyave. Gyanam viganam sayitam yajgatva moksha se subat. So Krishna says, Arjuna, because you're anasuyave, because you're not envious of me. Because you're not envious, therefore you can understand this transcendental wisdom, and therefore I'm sharing it with you. And realizing this wisdom, you're liberated from the miseries of material existence. So there's a lot to gain here, free from the miseries. Yajgatva moksha se subat. So at the beginning of Bhagavatam, so Vyasadeva says, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understood by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality, is distinguished. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. Okay, so the threefold miseries. We like to quote M. Scott Peck at the beginning, the first sentence of his book. the road less traveled, he writes, life is difficult. Okay, so that's true. And then he says that once we accept that, then the goal is no longer to try to rearrange the chairs on the Titanic, to use that metaphor. Then the goal is no longer just let me just fix this and fix that, and then it'll be better. Then I'll be happy. No, we accept there's difficulty. Then we can get on with the real business of life. Jivasya tattva jigyasa, inquiry into the absolute truth, serving God, self-realization, and then even the disturbances, the miseries become an impetus for deeper enthusiasm for atato brahma jigyasa, inquiry into that fulfillment, inquiry into the absolute, that fulfillment that will never be annihilated by time. Okay, so the threefold miseries. What are the threefold miseries? That's this: adidevik, adibautic, and adhyatmika. Okay, that's the threefold miseries. Okay, so adidevik, that's like we can see like even my name, David, right? I'm sure the source, like like in the Hebrew, David, it comes from like the divine, yes. So Sanskrit, Deva, English, divine. So it means the demigods, divine. So that means miseries coming from higher powers, and that could be scorching heat, or terrible cold, or earthquakes, or hurricanes, or like that. Okay, so Adi Devik, that's one category of the threefold miseries. Next, Atyatmika, problems of bodily functions, means miseries coming from our own body and mind. Our own body and mind. We quote Mark Twain a lot. I've been through many terrible things in my life, and some of them actually happened. So that indicates mental miseries. I'll just create problems. And of course, bodily miseries, right? If we're relatively free from them, we're healthy, but we all know, and we've all suffered maybe slight, maybe severe bodily disease and problems like that. So that's the adhyatmaka. And then adibhuta, Bhuta, I can see there the English word body, bhuta, body. So adibhuta is miseries coming from other living entities, other bodies. Adhyatmika is from my own body and mind. Adibautic is from other bodies. So it's like Vyasadev's deconstructed. What are these intrinsic miseries that make life difficult constantly? Right? And material happiness is, well, it's relatively less miserable than yesterday, or it's more miserable than yesterday, but my neighbor, he's suffering more than me. I guess I'm doing pretty good. Okay, it's like based on envy and scarcity. It's not the positive joy of the soul awakened to its nature as spirit, soul, as servant of God. So, okay, so other living entities, it could be other people, it could be mosquitoes, it could be the dog barking. So that's the adibautic. Okay. Now, the way Bhagavatam and Prabhupada are using it here is a little different than I just described. When I described the threefold miseries, adeva, adhyatmika, adibautic, we hear that a lot. Okay. Now what's described here, it's related, but a little different. Okay. So, all right. So this one verse, Agni, or heat, separated from his mouth, and all the directors of material affairs entered into it in their respective positions. By that energy, the living entity expresses himself in words. Okay, so the director of the fire element is a controlling deity, or the Adi Devi. Okay, let's apply this. Let's apply these principles to, we can choose any sense. Let's apply it to the visual sense, because for me, that's just the most clear for my mind. All right, so text 13, I need to mention this. When the palette of the gigantic form was separately manifested, Varuna, the director of air and the planetary systems, entered therein, and thus the living entity has the facility to taste everything with his tongue. Usually in Prabhupada's writing, Varuna is demigod of the waters and Vayu is demigod of air. So it's like, what's happening here?
Plus air and taste don't go together. Usually you have earth and taste.
Earth is with smell.
Oh, so electrons.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's what we have here.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
but
Yeah,
then,
yeah, right.
yeah.
Okay. This is not the only place in Prabhupada's teachings where he describes Varuna as like the demigod of air, but usually he describes Vayu as the demigod of air. I have some conjecture about that, but I'm not going to go there now. Okay. Okay. Right. So there's, okay. Now, text 15, thereafter, the two eyes of the gigantic form of the Lord were separately manifested. The sun, the director of light, entered them with the partial representation of eyesight, and thus the living entities can have vision of forms. Okay. So you got three things. So the Adhyatmika principle, that's like our visual sense, okay, our own body. That's the Adhyatmika principle. And then the Adibhautic principle, that's like, I'm here, yeah, I'm seeing bodies, and there's Melanie, there's Valerie, and there's that table, and there's the bookshelf. Okay, so that's the external. Okay, that's what I'm seeing with the eyeballs. Okay, all right. We can do this with hearing, with taste. Okay, but even if I got this visual sense, Adhyatmika, and the Adibhautic, and there's these sense objects, but without Adidevic, it's all useless. Without the sun god, whether we believe in sun god or not, but it's rational to sun. Yeah, of course, there's an intelligent person controlling that. Without the sun, if there's no light, then the Adhyatmika and the Adibhautic, no connection happens. So this is a theme in Bhagavatam. Adibhautic, Adidevic, Adhyatmika, they're all interrelated. And transcendence, Krishna is transcendental. The spiritual master is transcendental to this, all this codependency. Okay, because again, I got great eyesight. I got 20, 20, 20, like that. Okay, so so I can see sharply. Yeah, but without sunlight, useless. Okay, I got nice ears. Yeah, I can hear. And like the philosophical question is, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is within earshot, does it make a sound? Okay, so basically there's something that makes sound, and I got my ears, but if there's no ether for this sound to travel through, that's not going to work. So similarly with all the senses. So this maybe can seem a little, where are we going with this? But this gets to the root problem of life. It does. It gets to the very core problem of life. The core problem of life related to the visual, let's say, we do it with any sense, but it's like, is confusing the seer with the instrument of seeing. That gets to the core. When we say bodily concept of life, that's what we're talking about. I'm confusing the seer with the instrument of seeing, or the hearer with the instrument of hearing. Now, again, with seeing, it's pretty easy to use a metaphor. With hearing, it'll be easy soon too, because I won't be surprised if I get hearing aids at some point. Okay, but right now I got these glasses. Okay, so let's say I say, yes, yeah, these glasses are seeing those books on the shelf and the black table and the shoe rack. These glasses are seeing the green cushion and the red cushion. No, not true. Not true, right? The glasses are not seeing, the glasses are not conscious. No, the eyes, the glasses are an instrument through which the eyes see the red cushion and the green cushion, okay? But I'm thinking, no, the glasses see. No, that's a misconception. That's an illusion. It's the eyes that see. And That's an analogy. There's a segment of a lecture Prabhupada gives. Because it's in the Chanting Hare Krishna book. We read a lot. Because so just let's follow here. So the glasses are an instrument. The glasses don't see. So then Prabhupada, he says, it's not Prabhupada says, and this is what we're reading here, really. Prabhupada says, it's not, Prabhupada uses quite graphic language. It's not that ball in the eye socket floating in some jelly that sees. Prabhupada, so in the metaphor, the glasses are an instrument, it's the eye that sees, but actually the eyes are an instrument. And it's the spirit soul that sees. The eyes are an instrument. The eyes are they're like lenses, just like these are lenses. Okay, so it's the same with all the senses. It's the spirit soul that experiences heat and cold. It's this so confusing the instrument with the experiencer. That's what it means, the bodily conception of life. Dehinos mimyata dehe komaram yoganam jara. Tata dehantara praptir dirasta tranamuyate. As the embodied soul continually passes through childhood, youth, and old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. So we got this adhyatmika, right? That. Okay. So, yes. Yeah. So just like, all right. So that's the root cause, because bayam dvitiya biniveshatasya, the root cause of all anxiety is the bodily conception of life, misidentifying the actual experiencer with the body, misidentifying the eternal spirit self with the body. We could deconstruct it in so many ways, but that's the root cause of all anxiety, all lack of peace, and of course, all envy, jealousy, shame, etc., etc. Okay, misidentifying the spirit, the eternal spirit self with the material body, gross and subtle material body, hardware on and software. We're not the hardware, we're not the software, we're the operator of the computer, right? So the eyes are an instrument. We can even say the eyes are the visual sense. It's Vedic science, this Bhagavatam science, it's so subtle. Actually, the eyes are the seat of the visual sense. The ears are not the hearing sense, they're the seat of the hearing sense. All right, so, okay, just like, okay, one could very easily make a machine that when a red light flashes in front of it, the machine will say, I see red. And when a blue light flashes, the machine will say, I see blue. Okay, but is the machine actually having an experience of red? Like I have an experience of the red and red, I have an experience of red. My glasses have an experience. No, that's dead matter. You need consciousness to have an experience. So it's not, but I'm
Give the experiences that right before you were able to speak.
Yeah, yes, right. So the computer can't do that. So it was certainly the computer is a machine, but there's no consciousness there. Okay. So, all right. So this consciousness, so this Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, it's a true spiritual science. It's a true spiritual science that accounts for consciousness. We use that term, not that we made it up. We borrow or steal practically everything, all the examples and terminology, but the irreducible quanta of consciousness, irreducible quanta of consciousness. Irreducible means that that the consciousness, it's an entity unto itself. It's not in science, in consciousness studies terminology, it's not an epiphenomena. In chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, text 25 to 27, thereabouts, 26 to 28, Krishna addresses the epiphenomenon misconception. Tachainam nichajatam. So consciousness exists, and so for those attempting empirical science from a viewpoint of determinism, mechanism, mechanistic, deterministic, reductionistic consciousness is a big problem, because you can't, no one's ever combined dead matter to create a conscious entity. So it's irreducible, and it exists, and it doesn't emerge as a combination of matter, just like we used the light bulb examples earlier. Okay, so we can say, well, light exists because of the contraption of the light bulb and the filament and the tungsten and whatever the arrangement is. So no, that's an illusion, right? Light is not in any way dependent on the light bulb. Sure, light can flow through the mechanism called the light bulb. But if the light bulb doesn't exist, electricity still exists. Similarly, consciousness, we as the conscious entity or the supreme consciousness exists, and it can act through a contraption called the human brain or the blade of grass, but consciousness is not dependent on any particular arrangement of matter. It can work through, it can flow through, it can speak through, it can see through, it can peer through these others. But sometimes in some of our seminars or coaching, like with experiences, the process is like, I am experiencing. Yes, and sometimes we'll suggest to enhance realization of the distinction between the experiencer and the instrument. Well, state it in terms of, I'm experiencing the feeling of anger. I'm experiencing the sensation of tightness in my shoulder. Just like I'm experiencing the color red. I'm experiencing the thought that I'm not good enough. Okay. So that can help. And it's many approaches to mind control. A lot of Buddhism is around it. Be the observer, watch the watcher, observe the observer. Okay. So, I'm not the experience. I'm experiencing the feeling of fear. I'm not the fear. Okay. So that could support us to realize I'm the experiencer. I'm the experiencer. Okay. And I'm the experiencer. I'm not the experience. All right. So that's detachment. And then Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Pujita Janiyat Yashuvairagam Gyanam Chayada Hetukam. So by engaging in bhakti, then that detachment from the body, and that when we talk about knowledge, we're talking about realization of who we are as spirit, soul, not the body. That's the foundation of knowledge. Then more than that, Jivaras Rupoi Krishnera Nichidas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, Beta Prakashan, and more than that, then we're, okay, and then this is cool, because we can get, I'm not the experience of anger, I'm not the experience of this tingling in my foot. I'm experiencing that. I'm the experiencer. Okay, so that's helpful. It's helpful to detach from the illusion that I'm this body, which is the root cause of all anxiety. All right. So what do I do with that realization? What do I do with that realization? And then pretty much we need to come to bhakti, because there are different processes, systems, get to help us realize we're not the body and like that. But then just like, okay, to realize I'm not the car, I'm the driver. What does the driver do? Okay, what do? I guess I drive to the movies. I don't know, what do? Okay, so then in bhakti, we understand I'm not the body, I'm not the hardware, I'm not the software, I'm the spirit soul. And the spirit soul naturally directs its unavoidable propensity for service towards the root of the tree, towards serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we're transcendental to the interactions of karma. The verse in Bhagavatam, Vidyate Vidyagvantis Chijante Sarvasamshaya Kshiyante Chasya Karmani Drishtavat Minishvare. So through the process of bhakti, the knot in the heart, the knot of false ego, misidentification of of the experiencer and the instruments, misidentification. The knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are slashed to pieces. And then in that state, and we've talked about karma here, then realizing that, you know, not the that I'm the experience. Who is the experience? Is the experiencer a blob of nothing? Is the experiencer the white? Yes. And so then the chain of karma is terminated when we realize who we are, a spirit, soul, servant of Krishna. And the whole process starts. Well, it starts with what we're doing here. Association, Shushushu, Shodadanasya, Vasudeva Katavuchi, Semhat Sevya Vipra, Punyatirtha Nishevanam. By associating with devotees, at Al Shuddha Tata Sadhu Sangha, then we, right, general process, like, yeah, kind of like, yeah, what these devotees are doing. Yeah, they're, I know, like they're crazy, they're nuts. Like that. It's like kind of embarrassing to like identify, but actually the philosophy makes sense, and they definitely got the best food, and like the qualities of the devotees are special, and I really do like dancing in kirtan and things like that. So like I'm going to admit, I like to hang out with these people. Okay. All right, so that's the beginning of a process. There's like respect. There's some trust in the process. At Al Shuddha Tata Sadhu Sangato Bhajan Kriya. Then bhajan. Then the next part, we can call it initiation. What's it? Last Sunday on December 3rd, I remember in the talk I gave in the morning program, we talk about the essence of initiation. It's not a formal ceremony, although there could be an official ceremony, which is completely transcendental when done according to Prabhupada's instructions. But the essence is it's commitment. Just like in the seminar, right? You know, like some of our longer seminars, we have like, oh, okay. If you want to participate in the next 3 days, 6 days, 4 days, then we ask that you commit to some ground rules. One ground rule is I commit to attend all parts of every part of the seminar. And we say that, and that's not just not a formality, that's especially for those times when you want to leave. So it's like the next stage, because we know, okay, I'm committing, then no matter how uncomfortable this gets, I'm here, I'm doing the process, I'm here. And I might speak up and say I don't like something, but I'm here, I'm not leaving. Okay, all right. So then there's that purifying crucible, and then for those who stay for the full 3 days, 4 days, 6 days, the full seminar, wow, such a purification, but wasn't easy. So then kind of a next stage after, like, I actually like hanging out with these like bhakti yogis. Yeah, I actually like it. Like I check it out sometimes. All right, nice. The next stage is, all right, yeah, all right. Okay, now I'm actually committing to the process. Yeah, I'm going to chant 16 rounds per day for the rest of my. I'm going to follow these principles. I'm committing, read Prabhupada's books. I'm going to like that. Okay, then commitment means in one sense. If everything is just like guaranteed heavenly bliss all the time, no reason for commitment. Commitment is for those times where I don't feel like it. I don't feel like bowing down like that. So commitment is for those times it gets uncomfortable. And that's where the purification comes. And then that's where the taste of the spirit soul alive to itself. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogada bhagavat tattva jigyasa bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. One on the platform of goodness, one who's the man who's one who's enlivened by contact with devotion, service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, attains prajakshavagamam dhamyam shushakam kartumavyam, direct experiential experience of the soul and of God and the bliss of connection with God. And then that's liberation from, in the state of complete liberation from all material association. Then we're not even interested in those things that drag us down. And like the the driver of the process. Shravanam. Shinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Vidanta Stoya Bhajani Vidunati Satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in the heart of all living entities, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee. Truthful devotee, important term there that Prabhupada uses to translate that verse. Sri Krishna personally cleanses the heart from all material contamination for the devotee who has developed the urge to hear and chant his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So chanting, cornerstone of the process. Next cornerstone of the process, next verse. Nasta Prayesha Bhagaveshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Utamashlaki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. And that verse talks about regularly attending classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's a cornerstone of the crucible of the purification process. By regularly hearing and chanting Srimad Bhagavatam, discussing Srimad Bhagavatam in the company of sincere followers of Srila Prabhupada, all that is, all the contaminations are practically destroyed, and loving devotional service to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Okay. So Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your attention. Hare Krishna. We actually studied a few verses today in chapter 6. We studied verses 11 through 16, and we touched on a few of the very deep, subtle, sublime spiritual principles there in the text and purports. Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada. I welcome if anyone would like to ask any questions or share any comments at this time. Ladini Shakti.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class, Dhira, Govinda, Prabhu. So, what comes to me when you are speaking about the commitment? So I have like an observation of myself that like I'm like committed.
Yeah.
But when I don't feel like it, I really don't give 100%. You know, I give like 1 or 2, just like I guess I did it sort of thing. And then what happens is that I'm like, see, it doesn't work.
Okay.
So, and I'm thinking about it, you know, like, okay, as you were speaking, I thought like, well, maybe like some quality could also be a part of the commitment.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking like maybe, you know, it's better, you know, I know that shastrically not, but it feels almost like it would be better to, like, when I don't feel like it from this point of view, like not to do it at all, and at least have like a genuine experience of like, see, like I didn't do it, I am miserable, rather than like, you know, I think I did it, I am miserable, sort of thing. So
yeah, thanks for sharing. Kind of like, okay, so for sure, because like, okay, we have ground rules like, I agree to participate in all parts of the seminar. Another ground rule, like in the advanced seminar, everyone here, most here, graduates of the advanced seminar, you know, say advanced seminar. And another ground rule, I agreed to participate 100%. Okay, so whether it's the seminar, or whether it's our, you know, our commitment to Bhakti Yoga, you're saying, well, yeah, I'm definitely not giving 100%. So you're saying like, maybe better just give it up completely. Then I can have a real experience and compare and contrast, rather than, oh, I'm kind of committed. Yeah, I'm in the seminar, but I'm really giving like 2%, 20%, not 100%. Then I think, oh, the process doesn't work. So maybe better to just leave completely. It may be better to just leave completely and have that experience. And it's very clear, I'm not following, let's see what that's like.
yes, well, actually, that's what I was thinking. But I really appreciate that you are speaking about it, because that's what came to mind, that there is also the giving 100% commitment,
Yeah.
and then one can, I'm not saying I can, I'm saying one can also commit to that. So it's not like, yeah, I guess I am here. So that's good.
Thank you, Ladini Shakti. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So, all right. Okay, for myself and maybe most or practically all of us. Yeah. Yeah. So I can say, yeah, I've committed the process. Like clearly, like if I look at myself in any, or you look at me any given day, week, year, decade, it's just like, that's far from 100%. Definitely far. So yeah, to say like commit the process, then we're in the crucible. That's a bit simplistic. It's a bit black and white. So if I look at myself, okay, I mean, in some ways, like, okay, I've chanted the 16 rounds every day. I regularly read Prabhupada's books. Yeah, there have been times over the past 42 years when I'm a regular morning program. Actually, there was times where I wasn't at all. Then Mother Malini brought me back into morning program, actually. That's the way it transpired in 2010. And so there's different aspects, there's different aspects. And so it's not it's Nehabi Kramanasha Ste Pachabhayana Vijite, Sapamat Basadharma Satrite Matobhaya. Krishna says it's not all or nothing. Sure, Prabhupada, the Goswamis, the Acharya, they're encouraging us 100%, give 100%, don't just like show up. But definitely the recommendation is, okay, whatever you give, that's your eternal benefit. It's recommended. So, I can see there are some ways where I'm in that committed container, and certainly some ways I'm not, and some days more than others. Like, okay, and yeah. So I guess maybe I have enough realization to say, and this wasn't always true. Like I couldn't say this back 40 years ago when I was in my early years of the process, but I can definitely say I always experience that the process works. The process is powerful and purifying and joyful. But what about you saying you don't experience pain or struggle or suffering? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. And my consistent experience, and I'm able to make this distinction now. I wasn't able to make it earlier. I'm able to make that the suffering, the struggle, that's when I'm not 100% in the process. And so when I'm in the process, and then even if it's like challenging, but me as the soul is satisfied. And when I'm experiencing alienation from self and depression and all the grungy stuff, that's when I'm not in the process. And it's not this or that, because like, no, I'm there, yeah. I'm in the process. I chant 16 rounds. Okay, what's the quality of my attention? Okay. Nowhere near 100%. So it's the recommendation from Prabhupada is not to leave the process, to stay on the boat, even if the boat feels shaky. Not to jump in the ocean. At the same time, if we leave the process, we have an experience, and I've seen this, and that experience can bring one back to the process of bhakti with deeper enthusiasm. I've seen that. And we've also seen instances where someone, let me just go out and try the material world, like, that sort of thing. And then they a week later, a year later, 10 years later, they're completely lost to even what the process. They seem quite deep in the material ocean. Of course, they also have their process with Krishna, maybe over many lifetimes. Malini.
Well, what you said, kind of correctly what I wanted to share. First, like, in a sense, it's not possible to be out of the process.
Yeah.
It's not impossible to be out of our vows.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we can make distinction there. we have the instruction of the spiritual master,
Yeah.
and the spiritual master engages us in devotional service in a way that's the most protective of us,
Yeah.
for us to cross the ocean of material suffering. So, okay, you tell us, okay, if you do that, you will have, it will be easier for you to, it's not automatic, but
Yeah.
it's easier for you to cross the ocean of material suffering.
Yeah.
And then, and so within that, to some extent, maybe 1%,
Yeah.
maybe 2%, maybe 50%, so maybe 100% following the instruction of the spiritual master, then we are not outside of the process.
Yeah.
And then everything that comes, like, we take the example of the courses, in a sense, there is nothing outside of the process.
Yeah.
Even if someone doesn't follow the ground rules,
Yeah.
as long as they are in the training room,
Yeah.
then it's part of the process.
Sure.
So everything becomes part of the process as long as we are in a training room. And what is the training room is really following the instruction of the spiritual master. And are we following them 100%? No. Maybe it's just 1%, but at least we stay within the structure that he gives us.
Yeah.
And then when we do stay within the structures that he does give us, then the up and down of our, material misery, the up and down of our spiritual happiness,
Yeah.
it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
It's not outside of the process. Otherwise, there is an assumption that the process is supposed to give me happiness.
Mm.
And then if that assumption is there, then that's not a process in a sense, because that's not what the spiritual master is seeking for us. He's not seeking for us to be happy. He's seeking for us to go back to our eternal constitutional position of giving pleasure to Krishna.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Malini. Thanks for all those points. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate. I just would like to add that I'm kind of not judging like it works by feeling happy or not happy.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels that the less it works, the more happy I feel, at least on some level, I don't know. But yeah, I just want to say that I'm not judging works by happiness, but like, I don't know, feeling connected.
Feeling connected. Yeah. Thanks for that. I'm reminded in the discussion, there's a well-known verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Yayatamam prapadinte tamstaiva bhajamyam mamavartmanavantate manusha partasarvasha. Krishna says, everyone follows my process.
Mm-hmm.
We can follow it voluntarily or involuntarily. Sometimes Prabhupada gives the example, like everyone's going to follow the process of the king, the government, and we follow the laws, and then we get to live in this nice place and go on vacation when we choose and go and visit friends. But he said, no, I'm not going to follow the government. You're going to follow the government because, okay, you just committed a crime because you're an anarchist. You're not going to follow the government. You'll follow the government through the system called the prison system. You're still going to follow, and that's also meant for rehabilitation. That's also meant for rehabilitation. And, in this discussion for me, like, Maya is really a lot smarter than me. I mean, not a little bit, like, there's the frog in the well analogy, because I can think, no, I'll completely leave, then I'll have this experience, and then I'll come back with more inspiration. Then Maya's like, okay, yeah, you just opened the crack of a door. I got you bewildered for like 10 billion lifetimes. You won't even know what happened. You won't even know what happened. And it's not like Maya's like a mean witch or something. But just like the prison guards and the warden, ideally, they're not meant to be sadistic, but they're meant like, look, to go out into society. We need you to be completely rehabilitated. It's not intrinsically about suffer or punishment, but yeah, you need to like wake up for your own happiness, and because when you go out in society, you're going to be miserable if you keep violating people's rights. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Ladini.
Hare Krishna.
I was When you were speaking about Adhibhautika, Vidaivika, Adhyatmika, I was really thinking of the second canto, you
Yeah.
know, because we went deep into
Deep into
studying
that.
when we were like going through, and that's really what is described there.
Yeah.
You know, the demigod comes, and then the sense of, you know,
Yeah.
hearing comes, and then the sense of smelling comes.
Yeah.
And then he interacts with the Adhibhautik.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then there is so much description of that in the second canto. So I was just appreciating. Yeah, I need to tutorialize it up.
Thanks for that, Melanie. Yeah, it gets very nuanced because even if we just read the wording of these verses we read today, which is follow, like actually there's within our own visual sense, there's an expansion of Adi Devic. There's an expansion of the sun god within our eye. There's an expansion of the god of ether within our ear. If we look at the wording, so yeah, it gets quite nuanced. Hare Krishna. Other comments or questions, if anyone would like?
I'll share.
Valerie.
I'm feeling inspired to meditate on my soul,
Yeah.
and feels like when you were talking about the eyes and
Yeah,
the ears and
yeah.
the instrument of seeing and hearing, but that's not actually
The experience of the seer.
experience.
The hearer.
Yeah. I feel like I'm becoming more and more clear what that means.
Yeah.
Of my like seeing my soul and how I like have a visual of how it gets entangled in the material
Yeah.
reality
Yeah,
and
you
misidentifies.
think that process of entanglement is becoming more clear to you.
It's becoming more clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to keep getting more and more clear in that and what that means. And so I'm feeling inspired to meditate on my soul and
Yeah.
listen to what that is. And I've been practicing in coaching sessions, seeing Paramatma in people,
Yeah.
seeing super soul work and listening to super soul. And it's like, yeah, it's been really inspiring for me. And so I'm yeah, and I hear super soul in myself pretty often too. And I just want to like keep putting attention and energy into that voice. So that's a takeaway for me. And then another takeaway is commitment.
Commitment.
Yeah, being reminded of the importance of commitment.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thank you, Valerie. I'm reminded in your sharing of the statement by C.S. Lewis. He said, we don't have a soul. We are a soul. We have a body. He had lots of realization there. And then, we have, sometimes we'll do a closed eye. Some of you are familiar with, right? Like a closed eye and like a changing body, closed eye. Yeah, put yourself into the body of that 5-year-old. And put yourself into the body. What's it like to peer through those eyes? What's it like to hear through those ears? What's it like to speak through that mouth? Now go forward in time. You're in the body of the 15-year-old you, the 15-year-old. What's it like to smell through that nose? So that's what these verses are about, right? Differentiating the seer from the instrument of seeing. And then I appreciate all parts of your comment, Bhakti and Valerie, because these verses, we didn't even go there. Maybe Molly will go there too, but these verses, sure, they point to the soul as distinct from the body. They point to the demigods, and these verses really open the door to rational and experiential realization of the super soul, of the Paramatma. And there's a very nice verse in purport, some of you are familiar with, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 35. And Prabhupada gives a long purport about how through this sort of process we can understand how the soul is different from the body and how the super soul is directing everything. Is not directing, the super soul is facilitating everything, because it's like we talk about the eyes or the ears, right? It's like, I'm the soul, I'm the master, I couldn't tell you how the eyes work.
Prabhupada says that a lot.
Yeah, even the greatest physiologists, they have very limited understanding of digestive. I couldn't tell you, but it's working. So like there's some higher intelligence than me, sure, behind the rotation of the planets and the veins of the leaf. But even with my own body, like even when I'm sleeping, I'm not like, okay, now the corpuscles will. I don't have a clue how it's happening. Right. So there must be some higher intelligence there. And that's called Paramatma. It's called super soul. So meditation.
To remind us who we are when we wake up.
Yeah. Yeah. To give us Matasmi Tirginamapo and to give us remembrance. Thank you. So that's definitely the best coaching preparation, meditating on the soul of the client and the Paramatma, the super soul. Yes.
On Tuesday evening, I do a mindfulness mantra meditation.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I just support people to experience themselves as a soul, as an experiencer or the observer. And then one exercise I do, and I take advantage of their deep disconnection from identification.
Yeah.
Through the meditation to bring in Bhagavad Gita and to because from that place and they hear knowledge from the super soul, knowledge from Krishna. And then the exercise we do is for people to observe their thoughts.
Yeah.
And then when we observe the thoughts and become the observer, the thoughts slow down because we cannot observe our thoughts and think at the same time. Or we cannot be the observer. And then the part of the exercise is like you're sitting in your head and you're looking at your thoughts. And then in that moment, the person who is practicing that, then they experience another entity than the thinking entity. That's the observing entity. And the observing entity has so much power that the observing entity is kind of seeing that the thoughts stop.
Utilizing the process to move the participants to Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 realization.
And that is I quote a lot from Bhagavad Gita.
Anandini.
Hare Krishna. Thank you
Hare Krishna.
for the class and discussion. It's very encouraging for me to remember like commitment, giving 100%. And I appreciated so many points. And one is that the distinction you made between the eyes and the sense of seeing.
Yes.
That the eye, not even the eye is the seeing sense. The eye is the sitting place of the seeing sense.
Yes.
And it just, I just thought about that, how seeing, being able to see is relative. Like like when I was 14, 15 years old, I got glasses.
Yes.
Because I couldn't see properly. And then I went to some eye training and she explained to me, actually, it's not your eye that sees, it's the brain that sees.
Okay.
And so that distinction, like I trained that, like this consciousness, and then my eyes relaxed and I didn't need glasses anymore. But just to have this, and now that's, it's even more distinction. No, it's not the brain that sees. It's the soul that sees. So it's just really fascinating how it's seeing is relative.
And there's people who can see with third eyes, which doesn't have the genetic things.
Actually there was
completely blind their eyes and they can read a book.
There was a trend in our homeschooling community that there was a lady would come who did exactly what you shared, Mother Marini. And the kids, like I didn't send my kids there for some reason. I couldn't see the meaning or the reason, a sense in it. But kids that we know, they went there and they said it worked. Like after one day, they could close their eyes and they would see with the third eye.
Mhm.
So it's quite amazing.
Thanks for
And
sharing.
yeah, and something else you shared when you recited these 2 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam at the end of
Yes.
your sharing. I find them so powerful, and it reminded me that in the introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada writes, and I will go back and read what he actually writes, but what I memorized is that by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we can become devotees of Krishna by the 10th canto. I think something
That's
like
right.
this.
Yeah.
So like this is, I was reminded of that and how far out, like here's a book and you study it with sincerity every day, regularly, and you can become a devotee of Krishna.
Yeah. I think even
And-
right I think you basically one becomes a pure devotee by starting with 111 and going through the recitation and the word for word and the translation, the purports, and then after 9 cantos, one's a pure devotee. Yeah, very, very powerful. Very powerful.
Yes. Yeah, and I just remembered that and thought, yeah, like Srila Prabhupada wouldn't say it if it weren't true. It's like a promise.
Thank you.
Hare
And
Krishna. I feel inspired.
thank you. And what you shared about the third eye and other experiences, they're experiential proof that the seeing process is not dependent on any contraption, just as flow of electricity isn't dependent on light bulb, and it's an evidence for a completely non-material experiencer. Nitya Gopal.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. So thank you very much for the very enlivening discussion, and it really stirred a lot of thoughts in me. And just continuing with what Mataji shared, that how nowadays even AI has recognized that, and even for the blind people, they're fixing one camera for the in future upcoming inventions, and they're connecting some of that to their brain, which is responsible for them to visualize. And with that camera on their head, they can exactly see what's going on, even though they don't have the sitting place of lens. Yeah, and
Thanks for sharing that. I wasn't aware of that.
So even the dynamic equation, what you shared about, very new perspective for me about Adhyatmika, Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika.
Yeah.
That how my eyes, the person I'm seeing, and the sun which is helping me seeing everything is a combination. I was just wondering, because I read one statement from Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada says that a soul cannot see unless Paramatma sees that.
Yeah.
So in a way, Prabhupada was concluding that Paramatma kind of become interface between soul and the experience of this world. So can we also complete this equation by involvement of Paramatma? We have the me, other person, we have the sun, demigods, and we also have Paramatma, who's ultimately helping me in seeing and experiencing what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nitya Gopal. Right. We didn't talk really much about that till Valerie's comment mentions Paramatma. Yeah, but Paramatma is facilitating everything. Paramatma, Super Soul, is completely independent, and all these other factors, demigods, Adi Devik and Adhyatmika and Adi Bhautik, they're all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're all dependent on the Paramatma, which is actually expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yeah, so I like how you say that. Paramatma facilitates the experience, because even if all the other factors are in place, the mechanical arrangement isn't sufficient. So the Paramatma facilitates the experience of seeing through the mechanism of Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmika. Paramatma, yeah, we didn't really go there in the class, but at the root of everything is Paramatma facilitating the material and spiritual energies. Thanks for that.
And also regarding the point of visualization, even though we close our eyes, we can still see. We have that. We can all immediately we can experience that how me as a person is seeing, even though my eyes are closed when visualize things.
Thanks for that. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I didn't understand.
At Nichigo, Paul said that even if we close our eyes, we can still have an experience of seeing
Okay, in our mind's eyes.
in our mind's eye.
That's
Yeah,
what he means.
I think so.
Even like dream, we see dreams.
Yeah.
We experience that dream.
Yeah.
But our eyes are closed. So
Yeah, but we're seeing in dreams. We're seeing the tiger chasing me. We're seeing flying like a bird, and that indicates because we're seeing, and so we can say like right. So the dream state, we're like detached from the. And we don't have awareness of we're detached from the external senses, the external hearing and like that. But then that I like that the dream the
All
dream.
our senses are awake.
Yeah, but the senses we're seeing, we're hearing, we're touching, we're touching with the subtle senses, even though the gross external instruments we're not awakened to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's another point that you didn't touch on,
Yeah.
that there is a gross senses,
Yeah.
and then there is a subtle senses.
Yeah.
And then there is a utilization of the gross and subtle senses.
Yeah.
So that's the point that you're just touching on now, that additionally, you know, make additional level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very unrealized.
and also it reminds me of Srila Prabhupada, the instruction where Prabhupada says we have to purify our senses. Is it Prabhupada talking about purifying the external senses, or is Prabhupada talking about purifying our subtle senses and purifying the seeing, hearing, that experience of it?
Well, yeah, my understanding is purification of the senses. It's like to gradually spiritualize our senses, to gradually spiritualize our senses so that we're more and more awakened to it's that I am the soul. I am the soul that's experiencing, and that our experience is less and less filtered by rajas and tamas and the lower modes of nature. And then as we come more to sattva, that's closer to the soul. And like when Krishna says, Prajakshavagamam dharmyam, that this process is directly experienced, he's really, I think Krishna's talking about the spiritual senses that, because like we were talking like in the exchange with with Ladini, that like, yeah, that you know, it's the soul, you know, it's the soul that experiences, the soul sees through the process of bhakti, and the soul's awakened to itself. So it means like we, the soul, we directly experience, our spiritual senses come alive. So coming towards that spiritual experience, as Krishna talks about in 9.2 Bhagavad Gita, that's my understanding of what when Prabhupada talks about purifying the senses, or the analogy, Prabhupada uses the analogy of clothes. We could have, you know, we could have like a fine glove, and then that's covered by maybe a mitten, and that's covered by like a catcher's mitt, and like that. All right, so with the catcher's mitt, we can get the idea, something with fingers, but it can't pick up a dime, can't do much. So purifying, so just like, so okay, take off the catcher's mitt. Oh, with the glove. Oh, okay, I can pick things up. Yeah, okay. And then with the fine, oh, now I can. But then the actual hand. So purifying the senses means like removing the cataracts from the eyes, removing from the senses all of the layers of calcification, and like then like to the very fine, a fine covering that's like sattva, till we get to the actual raw spiritual senses with no covering. That's my understanding of purifying the sense.
Yes, thank you very much. Even I remember just now that where Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, your and senses get enlivened in the process of sattva, enlivening of senses, one of the symptom of sattva guna. And also how that sattvic vision helps us clearly see Krishna's nature as such.
Thank you, Nityagopal Prabhu.
What verse was the guitar difficult one?
Um,
Does it get on out?
well, to me, it sounded like text 20 of chapter 2 of the first canto of Bhagavatam, when
Okay.
one is enlivened. But I think there's also Gita parallels.
And I think even the name Govinda of Krishna means giving pleasure to senses. So I heard somewhere it is not only giving pleasure to his spiritual senses, but also can potentially give pleasure to material senses, because when we engage in bhakti, although we are not engaging in a sense gratification, we feel that fulfillment of senses as well.
Thanks for that. Yeah, Govinda gives fulfillment to the earth, the land, the cows, and the senses on all levels, spiritual, material. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhus.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.